The ballroom shimmered under 1,000 crystal lights, the chatter of silk-clad elites dancing through the air like champagne bubbles. CEOs, influencers, and old-money heirs filled the space with rehearsed laughter and polished charm. Among them stood Leonard Braxton III, billionaire tech mogul, known more for his ruthless business mind than for his heart. Tonight was his 50th birthday bash, and everyone who was anyone was there. Except she wasn't anyone, not to them. Her name was Rosa May Johnson, and she scrubbed Leonard's marble floors every Wednesday at 5 a.m. sharp. With her short-cropped gray curls wrapped in a faded scarf and her back bent from years of labor, she moved quietly, never speaking unless spoken to. Most never even looked her way. But tonight, she'd been invited. The gold-trimmed envelope had arrived weeks ago, its embossed seal gleaming. She'd assumed it was a mistake. Rosa wasn't family. She wasn't a friend. She was the help. But Leonard had sent it himself. Grinning to his assistant as he said, "Let's see what happens if I invite the cleaning lady. Bet she wouldn't know what fork to use." His assistant laughed nervously, unsure whether to find it funny. Rosa had stared at the invitation for days. Something in her heart whispered, "Go." So she borrowed a gown from a neighbor whose niece had once been in a pageant. She painted her nails burgundy, curled her hair, and pulled out a pair of gold earrings her mother left her. She remembered her mother's voice, "Baby, the world might see your work clothes, but God sees your soul dressed in royalty." And when Rosa stepped out of the town car, courtesy of her neighbor's cousin, the cameras clicked. She shimmered. Draped in a deep emerald gown that hugged her like confidence reborn, she walked into the room with a poise that made necks turn. Even the air seemed to hush. The jokes died on Leonard's tongue. He hadn't expected this. No one had. Not the socialites, not the millionaires. Not even Rosa. She simply stood tall, smiled, and said softly to the first server she saw, "Could you point me to Mr. Braxton?" Whispers rippled like wind through grass. Leonard greeted her with a frozen smile. "Ms. Johnson." What a surprise. She met his eyes, not with anger, not even pride, but grace. "You invited me, sir. I figured it'd be rude not to come." Then she glided past him, the weight of mockery never touching her shoulders. At first, people stared. Some snickered. A few took photos for the group chat. But something shifted when she began to speak. At the piano, she sat and played a melody, slow, tender, a gospel tune older than the carpet under their feet. Her fingers, worn from mops and buckets, danced like they were born on ivory keys. The room fell silent. "I learned on my mama's church piano," she said, her voice warm like southern pie. "We didn't have much, but she said music was a way to thank God, even when life felt unfair." A woman near the back dabbed her eyes. Another lowered her champagne flute. Then someone asked, "Rosa, what do you do when you're not working?" She smiled. "I pray. I write poems. I visit the shelter on 10th Street every Saturday. I help the young girls there learn to read. Sometimes, I just sit and listen." Another woman whispered, "That's beautiful." Leonard's friends, used to conversations about hedge funds and yachts, found themselves drawn to her stories, about losing her husband to cancer, raising 2 sons on a cleaner's wage, and choosing kindness even when the world ignored her. "She's the real deal," someone murmured. It was then that Leonard noticed something unfamiliar inside him, a flicker of shame. And awe. When dinner was served, she sat at a table with strangers who became spellbound listeners. She didn't boast, didn't beg. She just was. Whole. Real. Dignified. But the moment that changed everything came after dessert. Leonard took the mic for his birthday speech. "I've built an empire," he began, "but tonight I realize how little I've built where it truly matters." He paused, eyes searching for Rosa. "I invited someone tonight as a joke. But the joke's on me. Because she walked in here with more grace, wisdom, and strength than most of us could dream of. Rosa May Johnson, you reminded me of something I forgot, humanity. Rosa's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She just nodded slowly, like a preacher silently saying, Amen. The crowd erupted into applause. And Leonard continued. I want to do something I should have done long ago. I'm launching the Rosa May Foundation, to support adult literacy, single mothers, and community shelters. And I'm starting it with a donation of $5 million. Gasps filled the room. Rosa sat motionless. I hope, Leonard added, that Ms. Johnson will help lead it. Rosa stood, quietly, and walked up to the stage. She took the mic with trembling fingers. Mr. Braxton, I accept. But not for me. For the children whose names the world never learns. For the mothers who cry in silence. For the men who lost their way but want to try again. If you're willing to see them, I'll stand with you. A standing ovation followed, not for a celebrity, not for a politician, but for a cleaning lady who walked into a lion's den and turned it into a garden. In the weeks that followed, the story went viral. Talk shows invited her. Newspapers called her the diva of dignity. But Rosa never changed. She still wore her old shoes to church. She still cooked for her neighbors. She still prayed before sunrise. But now, she also led a foundation. Spoke at universities. Sat in boardrooms where her voice cracked ceilings. Leonard, once a man obsessed with wealth, found himself transformed. He sold one of his mansions and turned it into a shelter. He visited the shelter on 10th Street every month. Not as a billionaire. As a volunteer. They remained friends, Rosa and Leonard. Opposites by birth, bound by the truth they finally saw in each other. And if you asked Rosa how it felt to go from cleaning marble floors to standing on marbled stages, she'd smile and say, Baby, I was always meant to shine. I just had to walk through some shadows first. Wealth may build towers, but it's compassion that builds bridges. Kindness needs no invitation, and dignity wears no label. Sometimes the ones we overlook carry the very light that shows us who we could become, if we only dared to see. Let us never mistake someone's position for their worth. For greatness often comes dressed in humility, and heroes sometimes carry mops. And when grace walks in, even the mighty rise to greet it.